In 2023, the Braves had one of the best infields that we've ever seen. In 2024, they're back. Every single one of them. Let's talk about it. Woo, Braveskast, woo.
How's
We're
it going, Cole?
here. I'm good. It's going to be early March when you hear this, but right now we are in the waning days of February. Spring training just started. I think I just saw Xander Bogaerts' balls. That was interesting, kind of a growing experience for me. How are you doing, Mitchell?
I'm doing great. I can't wait for baseball. I was getting to the point where I was thinking about games I didn't watch the broadcast of. I went to a Phillies Braves game back in June. I was like, let's hear Brandon Godden call that game. I watched it live. I know we won. Let's listen to that call. I need baseball, man. I'm not a football fan. I'm not a basketball fan anymore.
Yep.
This is my only sport.
Yep. Yep.
I need this.
It's honestly for me, the life cycle of the off season, and it differs. Some off seasons we have a lockout. Some off seasons we have a pandemic that puts everything out of order. But typically November, I'm good. Like I'm a little baseballed out by November, if I'm being honest. And you have Thanksgiving. Even if you're not a fan of football, like I think football, the the aesthetics of football, like the vibes of football, are the strongest in November. Something about the Thanksgiving game and just the weather getting a little bit colder. December, typically that's hot stove season. Most of the major moves you'll see happen in December. Obviously, this year was a little bit different. Sans Shohei Ohtani. January is where it gets tough. January, there's nothing. There's football playoffs, but again, me and Mitchell are not huge football fans. I mean, I watch the games, but I just does not connect with me the same way that baseball does. And then once you get to early February, you're literally just crawling on the floor, throwing a ball against the wall, trying to find anything to bring you any entertainment. And that's where you get to what Mitchell was saying, watching gold broadcast. Just tuning in to old radio broadcast. Hell, maybe even just finding a field and just touching the grass a little bit, and then just staying there. And next thing you know, you've been in there for 6 hours, and the cops tell you to leave because it's curfew.
I mean, we're both technically YouTubers. We don't leave our apartment or touch grass. Like, I don't know that feeling, grass. So other people might, but I don't know. For me, I have to, watch it on my laptop. And I am so glad that we are now seeing baseball players back on the field. And the Braves are almost back. So
Almost back.
we are previewing the infield today. And it's weird. I don't know how you felt prepping for this, but in some ways I'm like, I don't even know how to prepare for this, because it's not like, with the outfield we have Kelnick, the starting rotation we have Chris Sale, and that question mark of a fifth spot that we'll get to in a few days or a few weeks, depending on when you're listening to this. But for this, you made a great point. We know all of these guys, every single one. Catcher, backup catcher, first baseman, second baseman, third baseman, shortstop.
It puts us in a weird position as analysts, people who just like to talk about the game, because like you said, typically when doing these previews, you want to hear about who's new. If you're a casual listener, and you're listening to our podcast because you want to catch up, see what the Braves did over the offseason. The infield, there's no change. It is the same 5/6 guys really who are going to be manning the infield this year. And to me, as a fan of continuity, and as a fan of somebody who builds maybe slightly parasocial relationships with some of these players, it's fun. It's nice to be able to like see the same team. It's like watching your favorite TV show, and year after year, what the cast is going to be. There's not much turnover. You don't have any community, later seasons debacles where Chevy Chase and Donald Glover leaves, and it's nice. But again, as an analyst, as somebody who, as us who try to put spins on things and try to keep you informed, it's a little boring because we know these guys. Most of these guys have been on the team for Well, all these guys have been on the team now for 2+ years, except for Sean Murphy, of course.
And it's not like, back in 2021, where Austin Riley was the opening day starter in 2020, he made his debut in 2019, and we were probably like, I don't know what to expect from Austin Riley in 2021. Should Johan Camargo be the starter? That was me. The Braves, they don't have, young guys who you're like dreaming about the potential for. These are established guys. Even Arcia, he's established. He's played in the big since what, 2016,
Yeah.
and I don't really know how to attack this. But before we get into like how we saw last season for these players and how we're seeing them next season, you had an interesting fact that I still don't believe, but I think I have to.
So for this one, I did cheat a little bit. I was going to do originally just opening day defensive lineups. The last time that we got the same infield 2 opening days in a row. And again, injuries can happen. I mean, knock on wood, but we don't exactly know what the opening day lineup is. We have an idea of it, but again, things happen. Players get injured. But the last time that the Braves pretty much went into the season with the same infield, and this is obviously catcher to shortstop, was 1996 to 1997 was the last time. Now, I did cheat a little bit because Chipper Jones was hurt to start the 96 season, but he was in the lineup by the 5th game of the season. He was Chipper Jones. I mean, he probably like tripped and like strained his hamstring or something. So kind of crazy. I mean, when you really think about it, this level of continuity just for any team is kind of unheard of. I mean, most teams are going to have slight year-to-year turnover. Whether it's just you're swapping out second baseman or a franchise player leaves. It's very rare for a team to have pretty much the same infield 2 years in a row, and most likely we'll have it 3 years in a row in 2025, depending on how our Arcia season holds up, and we will get to that in a second. But kind of crazy to think about. I mean, I think, again, I know it seems like we're lamenting it. We're just lamenting it because it's like boring, but good boring. It's like a very healthy relationship.
But don't click
but
off
this
the
is
video right now because we've got some bold
we do have some hot
predictions.
takes. We have some hot takes. And it was funny because you made a really great point where you said, these are also players. We just know who they are. And it's funny because when I was doing my notes, I literally had to keep myself from saying, we know who Ozzy Albies is at this point. We know who Austin Riley is at this point, because it's like, it's true. But again, for us, we want to put some spins on it. We want to make it interesting and keep things fresh. So it's just interesting that, like, these are all established players. You don't have anybody who, just broke out. I mean, they're all pretty much, I mean, some of them had career seasons last year, and we'll get to that in a second, but these are all guys who we pretty much know who they are. And we know they're going to be with the franchise for a long time, sans Orlando Arcia, but we'll get to that in a second. And Travis d'Arnaud, obviously, too, but
I mean, Travis d'Arnaud is taking over as manager in like 2 years, so he's with the franchise for life at this point.
Yeah. Real quick before we go on, who was filling in for third base?
So
while Chipper Jones was out?
Played a lot of Sporkle growing up,
Okay.
especially the opening day lineups. I think it was Mike Mordecai.
You're right. Yep. Not Rigby. It was Mordecai. That's good. Yep. Good one. Good answer.
So if not for that, I probably wouldn't have gotten it. But I do distinctly remember having to type Mordecai, and I was like, I think that was 96. So
Yep. Right on the money. Yeah. Shout out Sporkle. If you were ever bored in middle school or high school, Sporkle was a gem. Anyway, so let's go ahead and start with the catchers. Since I got the opening, I'll let you take the lead on our tandem.
So the catching spot's interesting. Sean Murphy is the better player in every aspect. I love Travis d'Arnaud. I want Travis d'Arnaud to be a part of this franchise forever, especially when he says, he plays better against the Mets. and it
That was a great
shows.
quote.
He hates how his Mets career ended, and he wants revenge for the rest of his life. Brian Snitker doesn't get that memo from what I can see. So Murphy last year, on the whole season, he had a WRC plus that was about 40 points higher than d'Arnaud. D'Arnaud had an 83 WRC plus. Murphy had, I think, a 129. That's a huge discrepancy with the bat. Murphy plays better defense. He has a much better arm. He's slightly better at framing. Like, any way you cut it, he's the better catcher. The playing time doesn't really fit that. I think Snicker is aware that the Atlanta Heat's a little oppressive. I'm not from there. Cole can vouch for it.
It is.
I feel like it was a 55-45 split when it came to playing time, and that just doesn't feel like enough for what we gave up for Murphy.
What is strange is that it felt like at the beginning of the season we got a lot of d'Arnaud until he got hurt, of course. He had that concussion and he was out for a few weeks. And that was strange because it wasn't that hot out. And especially for a guy like Murphy who's trying to establish himself in Atlanta, it just felt like we didn't get much of him at the start of the season. And as a result, he actually kind of got off to something of a slow start and then had that walk-off against the Reds and pretty much took off until the calendar turned to July. But honestly, I think that the way that their playing time was distributed for the rest of the season once d'Arnaud came back was fair. It's hard for a catcher to play more than 140 games, 130 games really, with the Braves. I don't know if you remember this, but we were both thinking that one of them would DH before we knew that Marcell Ozuna actually was still old Marcell Ozuna, and we had a lot of confusing thoughts about that. But we thought that, well, if Murphy's catching, then Travis will DH. Obviously, that didn't happen. Even when Ozuna was struggling, he pretty much was the DH day in and day out. So I think they're going to keep that cadence. I think it's just going to be one of those things where, day game after a night game, Travis is in. Sunday day game, Travis is in. And I don't necessarily mind that. You can say that both of them struggled well into the second half anyway. And we can get into that. But I do think that their playing time is going to remain very similar. It's just we're not going to have the beginning of the season where Travis d'Arnaud seemed like he was catching every game and then Murphy was kind of an afterthought. I think it's going to be very consistent throughout the season. Maybe Murphy gets more playing time in April and in September.
Yeah, I don't expect Snicker to change. I do think it is interesting, though, that their playing time was as even as it was. We should get into the struggling of both catchers. So Murphy, at one point in the season last season, I was talking about MVP candidates in the house that Hank built. Slack. I think we might have talked about it on the podcast here too.
He looked He looked like the second coming of Johnny Bench.
Oh,
essentially,
for sure.
Yeah,
hitting the ball incredibly hard, catching incredibly well. The second half of the season, I wrote it down here. He slashed 159, 310, 275. That was about a 67 WRC plus in the second half, the entire second half. So after the All-Star break, after he was in Seattle, he hit like Corky Miller.
Good reference. Yeah, no, it was pretty bad. I remember I had that little excerpt when I think it was in August or early September. He had more hit by pitches than extra base hits at one point. I don't know if that held out for the rest of the season, but it was bad. I mean, his power completely went out. I mean, he was still drawing his walks, which is a good sign. I always love me a catcher with a high OBP. To me, catchers with low ABPs just don't make any sense because it's like
Salvador Perez.
Let's not talk about him right now. I'm still Royals fans. We're saying some very nasty things. So we're Twins fans too, but it's like you're behind the plate. Like what the strike zone at is. Just the fact that doesn't translate for me has always been, just hasn't computed. It's like why has that not not work? I like my Yasmani Grandels, not my Salvador Perez's. And then Travis d'Arnaud was even worse. So I'm actually making a stand here. I don't believe in the second half. I don't believe the second half starts after the All-Star break. I believe it starts after game 80, 82, or in July, essentially. So I just took my second half stats from July on. It just makes more sense to me. I think we need to stop saying like, oh, the first half, when the first half is like 120 games or something ridiculous. Not 120, but you know what I'm saying, like 100, the 100.
It's like 108. It's way more than the 81, 82. Yeah.
So TDA's line from July to the end of the season was 182, 233, and 338. I mean, he was. I would say he was unplayable. If you don't think that, like, even for a catcher, which I know our standard for catchers offensively is very low, but especially considering the fact that TDA, yeah, you can make the case as a backup, but again, I mean, we were playing him more as a tandem really than a true backup. That's a really bad line when you get down to it.
I didn't realize it was that bad. I'm kind of speechless.
Yeah. No, I knew it was bad, but
I knew he wasn't great.
It's pretty appalling. His first half was really good. I mean, his first half was like, don't get me wrong, 277, 353, 471 for an 824 OPS. He was good in the first half, and both of them just nosedived.
One thing I saw on Twitter a lot for those guys is that people believe that Sean Murphy needed more consistent playing time. He played a lot in Oakland.
So
I don't know if I buy that.
That's where I was going to get into with some of his struggles. He might have been hurt too. I mean, there's just so many variables here, and I do kind of understand the consistent playing time, but the thing is, even if you don't agree with Snicker's deployment of them, at least it was consistent. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't like
Murphy on for 4 games, d'Arnaud on for 3, Murphy on for 1, d'Arnaud on for 1. It was
exactly
pretty much.
You could look at the schedule and pretty accurately predict like who is catching what day. It's not like he threw a dart on a board and then it's like, oh, okay, bullseye. TDA is playing today. It was pretty
rock paper scissors for the start.
Exactly, yeah. And then they have like multipliers or boosters depending on who's pitching. Like if Fried is pitching, then TDA just gets like, it's like best 2 out of 3, but he gets the first game, or double elimination. But yeah, it was pretty consistent. You just never know. I think that there's just so many variables, and to me, I'm more concerned about TDA's line than Murphy's line. I think Murphy's going to be amazing in 2024. Travis, I'm a little bit worried.
I'm a little worried.
I love Travis as a person. I mean, he's one of my favorite freaking people, maybe on this earth, if we're being honest here. But I think there's some players in this episode that we'll get to, Arcia, who I also have the same worry for.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think with Murphy, I think his overall season is more indicative of who he is as a player. It was just split really weirdly. I don't think he's a 170 WRC plus guy.
It's really funny because, I just said, I think we were very positive last season on both, and how Murphy, like you just said, pretty much regressed into the player that we thought he was going to be. So, I'm how about this? I got a question for you. Would you rather have the tale of two Murphys, Sean have a monster first half, and then maybe not as bad as he was last year, but just struggle as the season goes on? Or would you rather have like 750 OPS Murphy first half, second half consistent?
I'd rather have that consistency. I think
I'd rather the monster.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel like with Acuna last year, I know we're talking about MLB Network's top player in baseball, the NL MVP, but the thing that was most impressive about Acuna last year was his worst season, like worst month, was 145 WRC plus, which is just insane to
Insane,
me. Like
insane.
you
Yeah,
wish you could have that for a
yeah.
season. You wish you could have that for a month.
98% of the players in the league will not post a 145 WRC plus at in any season
In
of
a
their
month.
career.
No.
Yeah,
And I think that consistency was one of the reasons, like, he was always front and center with the MVP candidacy, why he
yeah.
was so fun to watch. With Murphy, I would rather have that consistency just to know what we're getting every day. Like, I don't want to go between him being Johnny Bench and that
And Courtney
Clint
Miller.
Salmons, that
Yeah.
catcher you forget about from 2008. I just want him to be.
I think I'm just a player. Like I'm such a sentimental fan that to me it's like I'm always going to remember Murphy's first half. And results are the same at the end of the day, but I'm always going to remember how good he was in May and June and being like, oh my God. Like, I will take that. I will sacrifice that, even if he's just meh the rest of the year.
I think what's
I know
tough
maybe
for
that's a
me.
dumb baseball fan take, but to me, I love seeing the fact that, like, for an extended period of time, Murphy was putting up MVP numbers, even if he wasn't a catcher. Like, to me, that's fun. That even if he
It
just
is, but it's not fun in the second half when you're looking
it,
at William Contreras and going, "Oh, we could have just held on to him and gotten the same level of production."
yeah, but who has a better arm?
Who
And
was
and
fixed
hey,
by the Brewers?
okay,
Captain
but
Lamb?
guess who wouldn't have been fixed by the Brewers if he stayed with the Braves? I mean,
True.
end of the
It,
story
it
here.
is tough to watch. A guy you trade, Contreras and farm for a guy who was hitting as bad as Murphy was at one point.
Yeah,
I don't think I ever would have had those thoughts, even if, Murphy and Contreras finished fairly evenly. If Murphy was just consistent.
I just think the Braves lineup is so deep and so powerful that, and this is something I noticed a lot last year, where two players could be in the middle of a slump, and that's I was thinking about this, like especially with some of the players we'll get to later, like yeah, he kind of slumped in the second half. Along with this player, how are we still so good? And I thought to myself, oh yeah, because Ozuna just went off, or oh yeah, Albies had a big month. It's one of those things where I talk about this a lot with lineups, is that we don't have a single point of fault. You look at a lineup like the 2023 Yankees, where it started and ended with Aaron Judge. If he's either not in the lineup or if he's struggling, then it is a mediocre lineup. It is bad. This offense doesn't have a single point of fault. Even Ronald Acuna Jr. could be struggling, and we still have a top 5 offense in baseball. So I'm just an idiot who is just like seeing big numbers, even if it's followed by awful like small numbers. And that's why I think it's just I would rather Murphy have a monster first half and then be like, hey, I'm like really tired, guys. I'm just gonna take it easy the rest of the year. And I'm like, okay, you do you, King. We're 20 games ahead in the standings. Marcell Ozuna is about to post a one dot OPS. Like you can take your time off. It's okay.
It is fun. It is fun, but then you look at Eddie Rosario's, like,
Mm,
every other month, and you're like, "Oh, this
yeah,
actually wasn't that fun."
that's fair. That's fair. But again, we're not counting on the Eddie Rosarios of the world or the Sean Murphys of the world to carry this offense. So it's like maybe that's
Yeah.
where the crux is here. So I have a question for you. I have a question for each player. And this is, can be an open question. Do you think this is Travis d'Arnaud's final year as a player? Do you think he calls it quits after 2024? He has a team option for 2025, so could get
I don't think
interesting.
so. I think with d'Arnaud, there are not many people who go from catching every inning of the playoffs in 2021 to just this 2 seasons later being like, I'm okay taking a back seat. I think d'Arnaud knows where he's at in his career. I think he thinks he still has stuff to give. And as long as the Braves need a backup catcher, which they will, and as long as he can play like a backup catcher, the Braves will continue to want him. They love his clubhouse presence. They love what he brings on the field. Uh, and he is, the future manager of the Atlanta Braves. And so they want to keep him close by. And I think d'Arnaud likes where he's at, too.
Okay, how about this? What if the numbers that I told you, his second half numbers, we're almost out of time. Wow, that was great. We might have to do this in 3 parts.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, wow. What if the numbers that he put up in the second half, the ones that I said, are the numbers he puts up for the whole season while his defense continues to decline?
I mean, Yasmani Grandal still got a deal. Like
Fair enough.
Jan Gomes still plays. Austin Hedges got another job still. He doesn't do much, but he's back with Cleveland. There'll always be a place for catchers. It just, I guess, depends. d'Arnaud will play. I think it just depends if the Braves want that level of catcher as their backup, or if they believe. I mean, I don't think they have anyone in the pipeline, catching wise. So it just depends if they think they can get, Austin Nola and he'll be better than Travis d'Arnaud in 2024, or if they'd rather just keep d'Arnaud because they like what he brings. And I think the latter will happen, even if he has a bad season.
That's a good point. All right, let's quickly move on to Matt Olson. Then we're going to go to a quick break. I mean, Matt Olson, I think we can cover in less than 9 minutes. All right, so last year at the beginning of the season, we were lukewarm on good old Matty boy. We obviously he had a disappointing 22. My positive was looking back at some first basemen who changed teams via trade, and how there just seemed to be a trend of them struggling in their first year before just going off, and he went off. So go us, I guess. Just a question. Do you think 2023 was the best year we'll ever see from Matt Olson?
That's tough. It's really hard to say someone would do the same or slightly better than a 54 home run, 280 batting average season. I don't even remember what his WRC plus was, like 166, 170.
Yeah,
it's really hard. Unless you're Aaron Judge, it's really hard to say, oh, yeah, he'll do better than that. But on the other hand, man, he was just so good in the second half.
Yeah.
Whereas, I was watching the game from June, and d'Arnaud hit cleanup, and Olson hit fifth in that game. And I was like, what is Olson doing hitting fifth in this game? And then he comes up. I remembered he hit a home run, so I was waiting for that inning. And I see his batting average right before he gets to the plate, and it's like 240 something. I was like, oh, I forgot about that. He was so good in the first half with a low batting average. And then he got to the second half and went, you know what? I can hit for average and power at the same time. And then continued to hit for power. And I don't even know what his batting average had to be in that second half. But to get to 283, he had a higher batting average than Ozzie Albies.
Might have been over 300 in the second half.
I don't think the numbers themselves will be as good as this year, but it would not shock me if he's pushing 50 homers, if he's pushing the 165
also,
WRC plus.
Let's not forget the most important part of his season last year. He hit 3 triples. He set a career high.
He's speedy. He's a speedy guy. He had that stolen base. Ooh.
Yeah. I know we talk about the home runs. We talk about the increase in average. We talk about the insane walk rates. But let's not forget, he is a triple threat. Literally a triple threat. But no, I mean, some of the numbers that stood out to me, his chase rate went down from 2022. He's just a super smart hitter. Something I noticed, I love looking at players' quadrants, like their zones, the 3x3 grid. He crushes pitches middle down, just absolutely demolishes them. So he was like, hey, I'm really good at my bat meets the ball bottom middle, like, just amazingly. It's just, peanut butter and jelly down there. Let me swing at more of those pitches. And so he did. and he crushed them. He continued to crush them. His swing rate in that zone went from 72% to 80%. His barrel rate, I don't know if it went up, but it was like insane last year. His actually sweet spot percentage wasn't great, but like I think for him it doesn't really matter. He just kind of crushes balls no matter like what the launch angle is. One thing, his defense was not great last year. I always thought he was a little bit of an overrated defender, but it was pretty bad. Honestly, the entire infield defense last year, besides, I mean, Arcia was all right too, but besides Riley, kind of just like went down. And we'll get to Ozzy Albies in a second. Don't worry, Ozzy. We will get to you.
We are coming after you, Ozzy.
But I mean, I think my prediction is that he can put up another great year. It just might not be the same sexy like 50 homer year. I could see him putting up 47 RBIs, cutting his K rate down. I mean, I would love for that K rate to be what it was in 2021 when it was like, what, 16%? Yeah, like
I
insane.
dream of that. That was one of the
for
things
a power
Alex
hitter.
Anthopoulos tried to sell me on when he traded for Olsen, and we knew the end of the era was coming. It was like, hey,
Yeah.
Olsen's strikeout rate's really low, and I was like, okay, I'll believe in it. I think Olsen, it's quite kind of crazy how I went from looking at him as kind of a disappointing replacement to just being all in. Like, I get sad still when I see Freddie Freeman in a Dodger uniform. Makes me mad. But then I was like, I'm like, oh, we have Matt Olson on our team. Why am I sad about this? And then I just watch Matt Olson, hit
I mean,
117-mile home run into the shop house. And it's
yeah,
all good.
I mean, Freddie Freeman's never going to hit 50 plus homers in a year.
He wishes he could.
Yeah, he's not.
Can never.
I will say, speaking of chop house homers, how many? I'm going to keep track of this too. I mean, I can also just look at the spray chart as well at the end of the season. But how many chop house homers do you think Olsen is going to hit? When I say chop house, it has to go either reaches the chop house or goes beyond it, which we also know he can do.
Okay, so I'm thinking he hits about 45 home runs in 2024. Mm-hmm. I would say half of those have to be on the road, right? So he needs to hit 23 home runs in total at Truist. Let's go 15.
15? That's a good number. Yeah. His opposite field swing freaks me out sometimes. I'll never forget that one home run he hit in Great American Ballpark where it just looked like a pop-up that was going foul. And even he was surprised how far he hit it. Like he almost like got out of the way of the ball once he hit it, and then you look at it and you're like, oh, that's going foul. That's just like a lazy fly. And I know it's Great American Ballpark, but it kept going and going, and it was gone. And you look at Matt Olson, and he's like, I really do that? That was a lazy pop-up. Like, that was a home run? Are you kidding me? What year is this? So, did he hit a single opposite field home run at Truist? I don't remember one.
It. I really can't. But I mean, I didn't watch every single game, but
I did.
I'm having like even mentally picturing an image of Matt Olson going into the left field, short fence wall.
Yeah.
I just can't. I can't picture that.
I'm gonna have to check the tape. I think I might have been at a game where he hit a opposite field home run, but at Truist, obviously. But yeah, we'll have to check that. Any other thoughts on Matt Olson before we go to break?
I mean, even if he's not who he was last year, fourth in the MVP voting, he's still probably good for like 4 or 5 WAR. And
yeah,
if your first baseman is worth 4 or 5 WAR, congratulations, he's on the All-Star team.
Yeah.
So the only thing that could go wrong for Olsen, and this is gonna haunt me when it happens, but the only thing that could go wrong for Olsen is if he gets injured somehow.
Well,
like
that could be anybody, and he's been really durable. I mean, really everybody on the Braves has, besides freak injuries, of course.
Yeah, but he's not gonna like fall off. He's not gonna go from 54 home runs to being trying to think Carlos Santana. He's gonna be good. It's just how good is Matt Olson gonna be? Is he gonna be disappointing 2022 Matt Olson where he still had a 125 125 WRC plus, or is he going to hit 74 home runs?
It could happen. I mean,
Both could happen.
you
And
look at
he's a great player,
rates.
and it's fantastic.
Anyway, when we get back, we will talk about Sir Ozzy Albies, Austin Riley, and then Orlando. We will see you guys on the other side.
Peace.
And we are back on this very special edition of Braveskast, where we are going over the infield, which, if you haven't heard, is the best infield in all of baseball.
History.
Maybe the Rangers have an argument, depending on how you feel about Nathaniel Lowe and Josh Young.
And Corey Seager's health.
True. Yeah. Look, you can say all you want about Orlando Arcia. Lord knows we're going to say some stuff, but at least the man can stay healthy. All right. So let's go into Mr. Ozzy Albies. I didn't have him bolded on here. Mitchell, how do you feel about Ozzy Albies heading in the 2024 season?
He always makes me change the way I feel about him, or in terms of expectations. I've always been an Ozzy Albies fan.
Yeah.
Probably since 2016, when he and Dansby were going to be, the up the middle combo. The only question was who was going to play shortstop. Then I thought Ozzy was going to be kind of an Ichiro type, where he'd get on base a lot, high average guy. He's sort of a high average guy. He's not the high average guy. Thought he would be, decent power bat with some really good defense. Then the power kind of went away a little bit, and the defense was okay. And then the power came roaring back last year, and the defense just died.
His skill set, your perception of his skill set, it's a little bit like a whack-a-mole. You hit one, and then another comes up, and then you hit the other, and then a few more come up.
You can't get any of the combos to sit down at the same time. Like
exactly.
There's a world in which Ozzy Albies hits 35 home runs, bats 350, and has 10 outs above average in the same season. It's just never going to happen, though.
Yeah. And don't get us wrong, we are a pro Ozzy Albies pod. I think if you were to ask any Braves fan how you feel about Ozzy Albies, considering his expectations, all of them are going to say we're very pleased. Like there's just the type of player that he has become. Even though I guess maybe what our crux is with Ozzy Albies is, like we were just saying, there has yet to be a season where everything comes together perfectly. But each season he's been good, obviously except for his injury shortened 2022. But each season he has done something really well and then has done something not as well. Last year, the K rate went down. His walk rate went up. He slugged .513. I mean, for a second baseman to slug .513, especially a guy of his size, amazing. 124 WRC plus. I mean, again, just ridiculous. Just the fact that he's maybe the sixth better, well, probably I would say fourth or fifth best hitter on this team, and he had a 124 WRC plus is insane. And then we get to the defense.
I did an article about this in May, and I thought it would turn around, but for whatever reason, he just could not field balls to his right, at all. He forgot anything to his left. He was still, his normal self. His right, he really struggled to backhand balls, and I don't know what happens.
What he needs to do is he needs to pass it to Arcia more. He needs to let Arcia get him on the assist.
Yeah, we need to have, Arcia shifted more towards the middle. Austin Riley has made great gains on his defense. We could way move him over almost as a shortstop. He's gonna get that ball fine. And then anything hit to Ozzy, he just flips it to Orlando.
It's the new age of the shift. Yes,
new age of the shift.
Ozzy Albies cannot put his feet in the outfield, but Arcia can be. He can lateral it to Arcia.
for the
You know,
assist.
if a slow lefty is up, I think that's a foolproof plan. So
I think,
next
yeah,
time Bryce Harper comes up the plate and he sees the Arcia up the middle um, shift, it's over for him unless he obviously hits it over everyone's head, which is also a possibility.
yeah. I'm like you said though. I'm pleased with Ozzy Albies. MLB Network had a few lists with a second baseman and overall players, and they couldn't, you know, come
He
to a
was
consensus themselves.
so okay. Those fan lists and the top 10, those are just for clicks. I do think they take their top 100 list seriously. Ozzy Albies was like 82,
66th.
or was he higher than that? I thought he was in the
He
80s.
was in the 60s. Ozuna
He was
was
in the
in the
60s.
80s.
Okay, that was still really low. He might as well have been in the 80s. I mean,
I Yeah, I don't think there's a second baseman besides Mookie Betts, which is weird to say out
yeah.
loud. Mookie Betts, second baseman. There's not a second baseman I would want over Albies. I know there are guys like Simeon who are better. There's Altuve who's better, but if you had if you gave me the choice, if you gave me the chance to be Alex Anthopoulos for a day, and Dana Brown came and said, "Hey, we'll give you Jose Altuve and $70 million for Ozzy Albies," I would say no. I really like having Ozzy on the team. He might not hit as well as an Altuve. He might not play defense as well as an
Yeah.
Altuve, but it's good enough for me. And he's the longest tenured Brave.
Yeah.
So I
Weird
think
to
that
say.
does mean something. Uh, yeah, it's crazy how that
What
happened.
what's okay? In 2018, I go back in time and I tell you, younger Mitchell, um, Ozzy Albies. What would be the weirder thing to hear? Ozzy Albies is going to be the longest tenured Brave going into the 2023 season, or Mookie Betts is going to be a second baseman going into the 2024 season.
The weirdest thing for me to hear in that scenario is you say Shohei Ohtani and Freddie Freeman are going to be teammates. And I feel like, wow, that's so cool. Like, I've been wanting Shohei since 2015. I wanted to see Shohei Ohtani in the major leagues. And then you let me celebrate that, and then you go, Ozzy Albies is the longest tenured Brave in 2023. That would be the biggest shock. That is
Yep.
a M. Night Shyamalan plot twist that probably means I don't get to see the 2021 World Series because I'd just be so devastated by those
real
kinds of events.
twisting of the knife there. But yeah, anyway, second base is such a weird position. I think it's in a bit of an identity crisis just because of the shift limitations. Previous years, a lot of teams were sneaking what should have been like first base, third base, if we're being generous types, at second. The most egregious example I can think of is Mike Moustakas, where, I'm sorry, that man was not a second baseman, but they were able to hide his defense just by shifting him around. Obviously, you can't do that anymore. And I think the way that we value second baseman has been a bit skewed in the past few years. It's not the deepest position per se, but I think you can make the argument that Ozzy Albies is. You can make the argument that he's the best, but you have to say he's in the top three at least. And I know you're kicking out somebody big, but you're either kicking out like Ketel Marte or Marcus Semien or Jose Altuve, or who am I missing? I'm missing somebody big. I know I'm missing somebody big.
I'm feeling like it's someone big, but I'm having trouble putting my finger on it. I would say he's fourth. I don't know if you can say, for me, Mookie Betts is now, since he's the second baseman.
Okay,
second
yeah,
baseman.
that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, yeah.
And then you've got to go Altuve slash Semien, Altuve slash Semien. Like both of those guys. I know people think Semien's just like an accumulator. Like he just racks up WAR because
He's
plays
still a good player. No,
162
he's still a
games.
good player. He's still a good player. He's still a good player.
even if you get 715 plate appearances, having a 6.5 WAR is impressive.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, I I would say that those guys are better. Would not trade any of. I wouldn't trade Altuve or Semien for Albies. Betts would be very tempting if you match the salary. It'd be kind of hard to say no, but I would put Ozzy fourth. Like I'd rather have Ozzy over Marte, over guys like
yeah.
Arias.
I literally forgot about Mookie. Like, even though we just talked about that, that's how weird the concept of him playing second is to me still. I mean, technically, we haven't really seen a full season of him at second, so that's
I'll
maybe why
probably
my
just go
brain did
right back
that.
out to right, like in May when Jason Hayward isn't as good as he is, as
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Dodgers lab thinks he is.
yeah. All that depth they have in the infield too. I mean, it's not like they need him to play second necessarily, but I think it's just them flexing. I think the Dodgers are like, we're making Mookie play second just because we can.
Do you think Dave Roberts is out there pinning the lineup card, going, I'm just gonna show MLB how deep we are. We're gonna put Mookie at second. We're still gonna play Chris Taylor for some reason. Max Muncy at third, just because we can. And then the season starts and they lose like 4 games in a row because Muncy's a terrible defender and Chris Taylor shouldn't be playing anymore, and Jason Hayward's actually not
Hey,
that good.
hey, Chris Taylor shouldn't be starting. He's still a good player. Okay, he shouldn't be starting. Is what
And
you should have
Gavin
said
Lux
there.
can't handle the shortstop position, and then he has to sit
And
down and
then
go, maybe I shouldn't have done that after all. Maybe I should have just
yeah,
had.
Miggy Rojas is their starting shortstop come May.
They acquire
Watch
some washed up shortstop again, and then
watch this
he
be the
turns into a
season.
4-1 player.
Anyway, just to move on here, I actually have a bold prediction. Again, I was doing the previews, putting our notes down, and I want to stray away from we know what kind of player that Ozzy Albies is now. I actually have a really bold prediction here. I think he's going to put up his best season against right-handed pitching. We talked about this last year. We always talk about this. There is a huge discrepancy between Ozzy's numbers versus righties versus lefties. He's a switch hitter, of course. His natural side is from the right. We kind of had a debate last year about, should he change his approach as a lefty? Because it's not that it wasn't working. Like, he was still decent as a left-handed hitter. It's just, well, okay, depending on how you define decent. But, he had a 749 OPS against lefties in 2021. I'll take that. Okay, like, it's not the greatest OPS ever, but I'll take that. That's not unplayable. I thought he should have stayed more contact oriented against lefties. Like, I would have loved to see him have a higher average with like basically zero power against righties as a lefty, and then just go full Mark McGwire versus lefties. I think he's going to have his best year against right-handed pitchers. He had an 803 OPS against righties last year, which was actually surprising to me. I didn't. I guess as the season went on, there was just so much offense. I kind of stopped. My brain just stopped working. I stopped breaking it down and analyzing it, and just enjoyed the fireworks for a bit. But I think that gap gets closer, and I'm saying it right here. He puts up an 850 OPS versus righties in 2024.
That's a bold take. While you were doing research on that, did you happen to see his WRC plus against lefties last year?
Yes, it was really good. I didn't see
His
his
WRC plus against lefties last year was 174.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
did that with a 3% walk rate. Do you know what Ronald Acuna Jr.'s WRC plus against lefties was? The guy who won MVP and was the most consistent player on the planet?
I'm gonna say less than that. I'm gonna say 169.
155. Albies
Wow,
was 20% better against lefties than the MVP
that is insane.
with a 3% walk
I
rate.
I was just going to think that their numbers were just like his numbers maybe against lefties were slightly worse, but I mean, his WRC plus on the season was like what 171. Acuna's.
I think it was like one. They kind of changed it. I feel like after the season was said and done, and they did all the like calculations. It was between like 166 and 174 though.
That's insane. That's actually insane. Yeah. So Ozzy, do you still think he should ditch switch hitting?
I believe in situational switch hitting. I
Mm-hmm.
think Michael Harris should actually kind of do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because Michael Harris, I watched Forrest Wall hit against Chris Sale, and I thought about Michael Harris facing a guy like Chris Sale or Josh Hader type.
Yeah,
He's got no
it's an
shot. I
instant
don't
out.
care
It's an
that
instant out.
his right-handed swing isn't as good, isn't as powerful. Michael Harris, the right-handed batter, would fare much better against guys with tough lefties with tough arm slots. I just think there's no way that they couldn't. I think with Albies, there there have to be some righties where he's better off hitting against them right-handed. It's probably not high velocity guys though. It's probably
Yeah.
those loopy curveball dudes. So I with this season, him
So
having the
so
one
so like, would you say he should hit righty against a guy like Aaron Nola?
it'd be
Not
interesting to
loopy
see.
enough. Not yeah. I mean it just it totally changes the way a player approaches like does their pregame, and it's one of those things I think like you just kind of want to have an idea. But I'm interested to see. I mean, that would be that would be such an interesting like next evolution of the game. Situational switch hitting. Like it would be even cool to see like Cedric Mullins occasionally break out the right-handed swing.
Right, because
Like
there's
just
no way that Cedric Mullins going to the plate against a guy like Hader will have
yeah.
more success as a lefty, even
Oh
though
yeah, yeah.
he's 75% better as a left-handed hitter.
Yeah.
The arm slot,
It's
the
just
spin rate, the
not all
the
not
movement.
all lefties not all lefties are built the same, and that's why we love baseball. Is that you see a guy like Chris Sale with his insane oh my god, I'm forgetting the term, but his insane release point, his insane oh my god, why am I
Extension.
blanking on the word extension,
Okay.
and you compare it to a guy like what's his name on the Angels, not Nick Martinez, the
Sandoval.
Sandoval, Patrick Sandoval. It's like those are two totally different pitchers, and yeah,
Yeah.
like one just completely is almost unhittable if you're a lefty, and the other one is like like I'm probably better using my better side against this guy. So I'm definitely interested in it. Um, Braves hire us. We would love to. I hit like 3 doubles one year in Little League. I was
I
like I
had
was on
such
fire
a high
for.
on base percentage as a little leaguer because I just didn't swing. I was so ahead of the game. It's probably because I didn't have any power from either side of the plate. But
I
uh, y-
I was like a two true outcomes player, double or strikeout. Um,
I was a walk, single, ground out to the second baseman because I hit left-handed most of the time. There was only like one lefty in my little league, so I hit right-handed like 4 at bats a year. Uh,
Hell yeah.
but ground out to the second baseman. I was Ozzy Albies of Watauga County, Boone, North Carolina, Little League.
Oh man,
Um, so yeah,
I was
just to
like the
wrap
Lewis
this up
Brinson.
with Albies now showing that he can kind of hit left-handed against righties. Even though I look at that Mike Trout-esque WRC plus, I'm fine with him hitting lefty. Like I'm gonna drop
Also,
him.
before we move on, speaking of him hitting lefty, how many chop house porch homers do you think Ozzy Albies hits? So this is
Um,
the porch, where the stands are.
yeah, my favorite chop house merchant is Ozzy Albies. I'm gonna go with 14. I think he
14.
has a lot of those. I know he hits right-handed. I know he hits homers in away ballparks, but I feel like I've seen there are like 4 walk-offs that he's had
Yeah,
just into the chop house.
yeah. I feel like every
So
game I went to last season, he had a chop house porch homer. Anyway, moving on to. Do you have any final thoughts on Ozzy?
those were my final thoughts.
Awesome. All right, next up we have Austin Riley. We're going 6-7, just so you know. Just wanted
We
people
know
to
our
know
baseball
we're real
positions.
we're real ball knowers here. Um, yeah, Austin Riley. So let me just check my notes. He had an amazing July. let me just actually start off with this fact because I was actually I was pretty proud of this find. It wasn't too deep, but it is interesting. Highest July OPSs for Braves players, minimum of 200 plate appearances. Number one is Gary Sheffield with 1.001. Next is Chipper Jones, 992. Third, Austin Riley, 980. And that's really just, I mean, I guess 2021 he went off too, but that's really the last 2 years where he just completely went off the rails, just went nutso mode in July. By the way, number 5 on that list is Matt Olson with 969, which I thought was interesting too. He struggled a little bit in the first half. I will say too, just a note here, he wasn't as bad as I remember him being. Like, for some reason, I thought he was like
I had the opposite thought.
You thought he was better than
Oh, yeah.
I remember him. I thought he was like lowish 700s. His worst month was May, and it was still a 773. Like, I know that's not great, but that's still like, if that's your worst month, like, you're having a pretty good year.
I don't know if I put it down, but I have him down here as a 106 WRC plus in the first half. It was a
I mean,
116? 107. I mean, that surprised me. I look at Austin Riley and I think, 140 WRC plus, easy peasy. Like, he wakes up, he goes hunting in the morning, and then he comes to the stadium and he's just hitting doubles, home runs. I was shocked to see him Matt Chapmaning it up in the first half.
yeah. That's what it was. I put that too. Like, had decent exit velos. I mean, his April, he started off a little bit slow despite hitting that monster homer, in St. Louis. That must have been the funniest moment that series for Chip Carey, where you start with your new team and oh, hey, the Braves are coming to town, the team I used to work for pretty much my entire career, and then just watch them steamroll over your new team and be like, oh God, what have I done? I mean, that was a very gratifying moment for me at least. But yeah, I mean, Austin Riley, I wouldn't say he struggled in the first half, but it definitely was a slow start for what his standards are.
I'd say he'd struggled by his standards. And I think I remember talking to you about this on one of our podcasts early in the season that most people never got around to. But it's like he went in April. He was like, let's see if I can walk more while still doing the same amount of damage. And he walked a lot more, but he was missing pitches he would normally just crush. Mm-hmm. And so he went back to the lab and, he was like, I'm okay walking 9% of the time. I don't need to walk 13, 14% of the time to be successful because I can't hit the balls that I normally mash. And so he just went back to doing what he was doing. That's the thing I love about Austin is he experiments, he changes things, he makes the adjustments. Sometimes they don't work out. Like, he figured out he couldn't give that extra half second to try to identify pitches. He had to go back to what he was doing, but it was worth a shot. And then he just did what he normally does. That's how he got the biggest contract in Braves history. He sucked, and then he figured it out.
Yeah. So, it's funny your note of the walk rate because in July, again his monster July highest OPS of any month, 5 walks, all month in July.
Yeah,
and then obviously pitchers started pitching around him more, and he sort of had no choice. But he was already in the groove. I mean, he had more homers in July. He had almost twice as many homers in July as walks, it's just such a funny looking stat to see. But no, you're right, and that's what I love about Austin. We go back to his 2021 where he had a philosophy that worked for him his whole life basically, and by the time he got to the majors he realized this doesn't work anymore. If I'm going to get better, I can't keep doing what I was doing even though this is all I know. And most players don't, I mean, not most players, but like most successful players like need that humility to understand like, hey man, like, yeah, we know you're good. We know you're really good, but you need to be better than good. And I mean, Austin Riley has shown us time after time, and I think like last year to me was the final test where I think a lot of us became skeptical, even after 2021, even after maybe not after 2022, but after 2021, like maybe it was just like a 1 year wonder. And he does 2022, and you're like, okay, mate, this might be the guy. And I mean, we signed the contract, so it kind of has to be the guy. And then he struggles coming out of the gate in the first half, and you're like, oh no, what have we done? We have given this guy a 10-year contract, and he might be a sub 800 OPS player. And then, like you said, was like, you know what? Screw walks. Walks are for suckers. Let's just hit the snot out of the ball. And that's what he did, and had just another amazing season. While also, too, he improved on his defense.
A lot. And not just like there have been debates on, eye test versus metrics. There have been some people who have been adamant that Austin Riley's been an excellent defender the whole time, and he just hasn't. He had this thing where he would make some really spectacular plays and then botch the easy plays. And there would be some times, he just wouldn't get to the balls that he needed to get. In addition to, really working through his hitting, he puts in the work. He put in the work for the defense, and he, by all, like any way you look at it, just an excellent defender.
Yeah.
And so I think when he was struggling, his improvements on defense, I was like, okay, if Austin Riley becomes a slightly worse hitter, now he's great at defense. Whereas, before, if his hitting had dropped off, then you're having... He wasn't Vladimir Guerrero bad at third.
No, not at all.
But he would kind of be like an above-average defender at first base,
Yeah.
playing third kind of deal.
Yeah. His defense is at a point right now where it's not hurting your team in the slightest. Like, he's never going to be Nolan Arenado on defense, but he's still... I can see him manning third well into his not late 30s, early 30s, which is good. You want to have a player where, they project out, and especially after signing that 10-year contract, I mean, he's going to be with the team until, the early 2030s. So he better, he better be able to stick it there. And I think last year he proved that he can.
I think, yeah, going into this year, I think he's made the adjustments he needs to make as a hitter. He'll continue to tinker. But I expect his 127 WRC plus from last year is going to go back to being closer to a 140, 150 that it was in the 2 years prior. And then you're adding on the defense. And I have a bold prediction for the outfield, so I'm not going to say that he's going to be a top 3, top 5 MVP candidate dude, but he's going to get those MVP votes again.
Yeah.
He's going to probably finish 6th, 7th at a minimum. And if that's your third best player, which I think he is our third best position player, that's fantastic. That's exactly what you need.
Yeah. I think we're going to look back, when we look back at this period of Braves baseball, we're going to see him as the anchor of the team. Like, Mr. Consistent, showed up year in, year out, like never the flashiest. I mean, I still think he's like an exciting player just because he hits the snot out of the ball. And like, he's a decent runner too, and now we know he's a decent.
He doesn't
defensive
realize
third baseman.
he's fast though. I think that's what bothers me. I think if he actually looked at his numbers, he'd go, "Oh wait, I can do that," and then he'd steal like 30 bases.
I'm almost as fast as Ronald.
By the metrics, I'm faster than Ronald. I could steal bases. If Freddie Freeman can steal 20 bases, Austin Riley can steal 20 bases.
He's got like tight end speed though, to reference our second favorite sport, obviously football, where it's like, I think when he's the short speed is not great, but when it's like when he's booking it, like when he's rounding third base going home, like, yeah, I mean, he could probably beat Usain Bolt if he wanted to. You just got to give him a head start.
And I see 0 stolen bases year 1, 0 stolen bases year 2, 3. Then I think he had 1 steal, and then 2 steals, and I think he had 3 steals last year. He's making his way up.
0, 0, 2, 3. It's going to be like the what's it? Not the Pythagorean theorem.
It's going to be like an exponential chart,
Yeah, it's going to be like a recursive, where it's going to be like 2, 23, and then it's going to be like 9 next year, and then 18, and then like 27.
And then suddenly
Yeah.
he's standing on third base in 2029. And, Kelly Kroll comes out of the Braves booth and she's like, how does it feel, Austin Riley, to have broken Ricky Henderson's single season stolen base record? And he's like, I never thought I could do it, but here I am. 139.
I feel like you feel like, wait, I did? Like, I broke his record? Are you
I didn't even
seriously?
realize it.
Yeah, wow.
Can I take this?
I don't want to.
Will the Cubs get mad at me if I do a little celebration? And
I don't want to
take the
impose
base?
or anything, but I could take the base with me. Like, oh, cool, okay, it was like a trophy or something. No, we love you, Austin. We're not. We're just having fun here. All right, we have 9 minutes left. Just one quick question about Austin Riley. Do you think he's going to be the first player to rip his pants during the regular season?
I think he's thick, but there are
But he's
some
not that thick.
guys. A guy on the Mets I could see. I don't think he plays on the Mets actually. I don't know who he's with.
Vogelback?
Yeah, who is he with now?
Blue Jays.
Blue Jays. There's a guy in
Yeah.
the Blue Jays who might get to it first. There are actually
Or at least
multiple guys on
cherished
the Blue
jersey.
Jays who might get to it
A
first.
lot of a scary amount. Just a hot take. I think Riley's gonna post his first 40 homer season this year.
I would agree with
that's my
that.
hot
I'm
take.
kind of surprised he hasn't.
Yeah, same. All right, last but least, we love you, Orlando, but I'm sorry, we're talking about Matt Olson and Austin Riley here. Just
We're
no offense
talking
to
about
you.
guys who are fringe Hall of Famers.
Yes,
Honestly. All
yes.
three of the guys we talked on the diamond, not the catchers. All three of them are fringe Hall of Famers.
Yeah, and I mean, hey, there's a chance that Sean Murphy and Travis d'Arnaud are in the Braves Hall of Fame or get
Travis
some
d'Arnaud
honorary
gets in
plaque
for
or
managing
something.
When
Yeah.
he goes and wins the Braves 6 straight World Series titles.
All right, so Orlando Arcia, he is the Braves shortstop. Let's stop arguing about it. He's the starter on the depth chart. Just accept it. We're not getting Willy Adames. Moving on. Yeah. So I'm a little bit concerned about Orlando Arcia. He had an amazing first half, just like Sean Murphy. And then, okay, so his second half wasn't Travis d'Arnaud levels of bad, but it was still pretty bad. He slashed 218, 280, 389 for a 669 OPS. He also like cursed the Braves during the playoffs, I guess, when he said "attaboy Harper." I don't know.
I still think the Braves could have used that to just motivate them. They chickened out.
Yeah. We if you want to check out our episode following our most popular episode actually following the loss to the Phillies, you can, where I don't think we went actually as hard as we should have into the fact that the Braves botched that opportunity to become something of the villains.
It's kind of wild. Just that loss just was a bad emotional place. I don't know. Anger is not my default when I'm disappointed. So
yeah.
maybe.
So I just got a question. I'm just gonna ask this question. We got about 6 minutes left. Orlando Arcia is the least compelling player that we're talking about on this episode. Do you think Braves fans? It's not going to happen. I'm not saying it's going to happen. Like Alex Anthopoulos is a very smart man. He knows how to construct a roster and how to maintain a roster. But do you think a large contingent of Braves fans are going to be calling for a trade for a new shortstop during the deadline?
So I'm going to go ahead and slip in my bold take for the entire infield. There's a guy who plays shortstop in our minor league organization who is on the Michael Harris track right now. Michael Harris in 2021 had a 787, 797 OPS in Rome. He played the entire season at high A during his age 20 season. By May of that year, he was the Braves starting center fielder. There's a guy named Ignacio Nacho Alvarez who is a shortstop who turns 21 in 2 months. He played the entire season at high A. He had a 787 OPS. His defense, I've heard from people, is good. He has great bat to ball contact. The concern is he might not have enough power. Michael Harris, his power came out of nowhere, if I
Yeah,
remember
yeah,
correctly.
yeah,
Uh, if Alvarez can just a little bit uptick that power, he could easily be the Braves shortstop by July. I don't think he's going to reach the majors as quickly as Harris did. Most people don't go high A, double A majors in the time that Harris did,
yeah.
but they're
But
parallels for him and
yeah,
Alvarez.
and we do know Alex is very aggressive in his call ups. Obviously, from the Michael Harris example, obviously Strider too. Even Riley, you could say, was something of an aggressive call up. I mean, we even tried putting him in left field because we had Donaldson that
He was
year.
a good left fielder.
Well, I
Defensively,
feel like,
he was a good left fielder defensively.
yeah. I also feel like we've had some pretty awful defensive left fielders too, and
Matt Kemp nightmares.
yeah, I'm thinking of like even like Ozuna, early 21, and when we tried to put Arcia and Contreras out there. Whew, okay.
Anyway, yeah,
Speaking of Arcia, so no, I love that prediction a lot, and if it happens and Alvarez starts the year on fire, or at least like good enough to prove that he, you know what, that's a fun thing about this team. I was listening to Talking Baseball. I still listen to their previews. They still do some good stuff over there. I'm actually will always contend that. And they're talking about the Pirates, and they're talking about Paul Skeens, who Paul Skeens, if you don't know, if you're just a Braves fan or a casual baseball fan, was the first overall pick of the 2023 draft. He's basically a major league ready pitcher. I mean, he's just, you look at his stuff and you're like, yes, he is ready for the majors. The only question is his workload. Really is, he probably can't. It's like Steven Strasburg, where he could be on the major league roster just with an innings limit, but they're saying, well, the team's not that good. You're not going to start this player's service clock for a team that's not going to make the playoffs. What's fun about the Braves and their infinite window, at least it seems infinite right now, is that, yeah, if a guy like Alvarez just shows up in the minors and proves that, yeah, I'm ready for a major league job, we'll pitch you up here. Like, there's no reservations about it. Like, we will start your service clock. Like, we want the best 40-man roster possible. We want the best 26-man roster possible. So I love that. I love that prediction. Kind of answers my question in a way. Like, we might not be asking for a trade but it might not be Arcia playing.
Yeah, with Arcia, I know we're kind of short on time. Arcia actually he gets paid like a backup anyway, and we'll get to the bench later, probably in a few weeks after this episode is released. The bench is bad. The bench is really bad.
Yeah.
The middle infield options are really bad. Having Orlando Arcia as your backup infielder. Oh, the backup infield spots are really bad.
Guillorme, come on. You don't like Guillorme?
You do not want him at shortstop. You do not want, if Arcia
as a
goes
backup.
Down,
as a back, okay, yeah.
him.
If he goes, long term, we're screwed. But I'm just saying, like, as a one game guy. I mean, come on. Luis
Adrianza was
Guillorme.
fine as a one game guy. I still would contend that with Adrianza on the bench last year, it was a bad bench. Nicky Lopez, miss you, man, was a great option. I think Orlando Arcia becomes that Nicky Lopez by July.
Yeah, and guy could play shortstop, second base, third base if you need to. Left field? Maybe.
We don't need a backup first baseman, thankfully, because Marcell Ozuna is going to save the day.
Yes, he is actually starting on Saturday, or 2 weeks ago. I was going to make a joke real quick though. Just keep Jared Kelenic away from coolers, and we should be good.
Yeah, I think like him and Huascar Noah need a barrier. There just needs to be a cooler barrier, and
you need to
Noah or Kelenic get near it.
To give them like bubble wrap, just each one of them like a nice tube of bubble wrap, and if they ever get mad, they can just punch the bubble wrap. Anyway, we're down to our last minute here. Yeah, our infield is amazing. I mean, just long story short, TLDR, it's a really good infield.
If you click the video and then you skip to the very end, you got your answer.
Yeah, I don't know why you had to listen to us for an hour plus just to figure out that, yes, the Braves infield is historically good. All right. Check
right.
us out on our
We'll see you
socials,
next
and
week.
see you next week.
Bye.